What's up, Jesse?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good,
How's it
man.
going?
Just came back from my run a little while ago. Got into the shower before we decided to jump on here
That's
for
good,
episode
baby.
three. So, you know what I'm
There's
saying?
a there's a heat wave out there.
Yeah, man. It's like 100 degrees every day, and this is pretty uncommon for the Bay Area. The Bay Area is known as like weather-wise is like the Goldilocks area of
Mm,
California. So if you're like in San Francisco, for instance, fun fact for anyone who's never been to the Bay Area, it's usually around 60 to 70 degrees up around the San Francisco area. But since we're more south, we get the full California heat, like it's
mm.
SoCal, so like San Diego, Los Angeles. But it's been pretty nice throughout this whole entire summer. Like, between 80 and 95. I've never really seen it go to 100. So it gets hot, really hot for like 3 hours. But for some reason, this whole week, dude, like even the morning has been like super hot. The nights have been super hot. Usually gets really cool at night out here, but for some reason, this whole week it hasn't. So
Mm.
working out, bro, I've been killing myself because it's so hot. It's so hot.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that video you posted the other day with the kettlebells. I was like, yo, my boy is sweating out here, man.
I
He's
was
putting in that work.
dying. I couldn't even
Yeah,
finish the 6 rounds. That workout was 6 rounds. I only did five because I was I felt myself getting dehydrated, even though I was drinking a little bit of water throughout each set I went through. But I was just like, yeah, if I continue, I'm either gonna injure myself because I'm losing
yeah.
form, or something else. I was like, let me just be smart and just stop right there.
That
So
takes such a long time. That takes such a long time to cultivate, right?
what do
Like
you mean?
the sense of, oh, I should stop. I should stop. You know how many times I fight myself with that, where like if I'm in the middle of a tough workout, I know the weight I have, because we're all working out from home now, and
Mm-hmm.
so you have limited equipment, right? And you try to buy, for example, like kettlebells that you can use for most workouts. And every now and then you get a workout that's really tough, and you're like, I definitely would perform better at this with a smaller kettlebell, but I'm still gonna try. And then you fucking just, you try and it's a shit show. Or you're doing good for a few rounds, and then you're like, I got 2 rounds left, or I got another round left, and that like your ego just wants to crush it, but you just have
Right.
to be like, well, in
So I
the
have a
past, when I've done this,
Yeah, I want to
I'm
hear
in
from you.
pain. In the past, when I've done this, I've hurt myself so
So
many
wait,
times.
how do you know personally, like when is a good time to push through and when is a good time to just be like, I should chill before I injure myself? Like how do you know that point?
Mm. I think for me, well, first of all, like I've had a long history. You know this. I've had a long history of injuries and overdoing it. Um, I, Valentina makes fun of me all the time because she says like I have a high pain threshold, but that has like messed me up in my past because I don't listen to that pain threshold and I'll hurt myself. And so I think part of it is just like, to some level you can't know until you've done it enough, until you've participated in sports long enough or exercise long enough where you just know where that point is. But for me, I would say it's when exactly what you said is like when I start giving up form. And that's going bad. Also when my thinking like it's different to with weights than it is with like cardio, for example. Like I think if I'm doing like a run and it's long, or even if I'm doing like something that's uh, high intensity, that doesn't require weights necessarily. If my mind starts to go, well, it's like, okay, well, I could just rely on the movement. You know what I mean? Like I can just rely on the exercise. I just need to keep my body going. But I personally don't think the same rules apply when you're lifting weights because of the level of injury that's available there. It's like so much more complex when you're doing a kettlebell snatch or a kettlebell clean and jerk, that if your mind starts to go and it's to the point where you're just like and like just pushing through a movement, that's time to stop or switch it up. Sometimes like one of the biggest things I've learned is like you could just change the exercise. Like I've had a pretty strong problem with anterior pelvic tilt, basically where like it's called like Donald Duck syndrome, when like your belly kind of hangs over your pelvis. um, and I've had knee problems, and when I was working through those things, I remember there was this one workout where like side lunges. So like for whatever reason, well, actually not for whatever reason, I know the reason. It's because my glutes were really weak. And so when I would do a side lunge, you rely so heavy on your glutes and hamstrings, and when you have an interior pelvic tilt, it's typically because you have really weak glutes and hamstrings. And so I would do them, and my knees would just start buckling or aching, and everything just felt terrible when I did it. And like I did it for 3 rounds, and I was like, I fucking hate this, man. So then I regressed to this like a little exercise you do on the floor where you like fan out your legs, so to work on your glute. And that still gave me like a powerful workout, without the risk of injury or the risk of like discomfort. I would always say when it comes to weights, like take those extra precautions, because the chance of injury is so much higher.
And I think like as a man, you want to do those heavy weights, but if you feel like you're around, you're in set number 3 out of 6, and you're starting to lose form, you're starting to get weak, go down the weight. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, like you said, being home, we just don't have that much equipment because, yeah.
At least not yet. Like I was
Not
telling
yet.
Val, I'm like, I'm gonna turn this place into like a home gym, right? She's like, no. And like slowly but surely, I'm like just adding items into the house, because yeah, you need it. Or
Same.
you don't necessarily need it. It's just fun, and you want to play with things, and you just want to have your grown up toys.
I tell Karina all the time, we're gonna have a whole closet just filled with workout equipment.
That's a good time.
Until we get a house and we have a garage, then the garage is just gonna be a gym.
Yo, I should turn my closet into that, because like I have clothes in there. I like 70% of the clothes that are in my closet I don't wear, and I'm just waiting to get rid of. And when I do get clothes at some point, it's gonna be really minimal. So maybe maybe the motivation could be like, this will be my closet for my goods. You know what I mean? And I could just keep all my shit in there. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think also something that's important to consider, and we can even talk about this today as like a bigger topic, is like I think the biggest question to ask in those times when you want to push through is like, why are you training? Like, are you training just for this moment, or are you training to achieve something bigger, or are you training for longevity, right? Because if you're training for the rest of your life, then if you the risk you have in hurting yourself versus the reward of completing this workout is much greater than the risk is much greater than the reward, right? And I think that, and that bleeds into so many things when it comes to exercise and working out. But this, like switching it from like, I'm training or exercising for this short-term gain, and there are short-term gains for sure, or am I doing this because I want to live a really healthy life for as long as possible? It changes everything. And I'm sure you can touch on that a lot.
Right, man. I mean, if folks that listen to this follow me on Instagram, I've said it probably multiple times. Like, my goal in life, when people look at me, and I've been asked this at work, for instance, like, why do you work out? Like, are you working before the Spartan stuff? Like, are you working out for anything? I'm like, no, I'm working out because when I'm 90 years old, I want to be able to pick up my grandchildren without struggling, right? I want to be able to just lift them up, no problem. And, there's plenty of athletes and fitness people out there who are like in their 60s and they're killing it. I mean, I know Paul Chek is only in his 50s, but Paul Chek is definitely an inspiration to be like 50 something years old, fucking jacked. And, he looks like he's, like he has the strength of a 20-year-old, but he's like into his 50s.
Yeah, he just had another kid.
Exactly. He had another kid. I think of Mark Sisson. Mark Sisson's older than him. I think Mark Sisson's in his 60s. And dude is also jacked. And
Hmm.
like Laird Hamilton, like all these guys are kicking it, kicking ass at just, life. And they're like already, they're closer to death than we are.
Mm.
Um, but I think about like, what do they eat? Like, what kind of fitness modalities do they do? Um, because one thing that came up for me is just like that whole idea of the blue zones, right? Are you familiar with this idea of the blue zones?
Roughly, but you can definitely explain it.
So I think the doctor's name or the researcher is called David Palmer, maybe, who wrote the book The Blue Zones. He had two books, and I remember reading one many years ago, and it talked about obviously all the one you got Loma Linda, California, where all the Adventists live, the Christian Adventists who pretty much created Kellogg, for instance, the brand Kellogg. You got like places. There's a place in Chile, South America, obviously Okinawa, Japan. You got I forget all of them, but there's about 7 or 8. Sardinia is one of them that was in Zac Efron's recent docuseries on Netflix. They went there, and all of these places are very like plant-based, Mediterranean style. They eat a lot of fish. They eat a lot of this. None of them go to the gym, but for some reason, they live past 95 on average. And what they say is that one, it's part of their genetics. So there's a genetic component to it. Two, they have cleaner air, cleaner water. They have a lot of hills, so they walk up and down hills all day. They're in higher elevation, right? A lot of their food is organic. It's not GMO corn, all this stuff that we have in the Western society. So they're able to live long because they have all these different components of life, right? Like they have a great community aspect, right? Like they don't do things individualistic as they do here in America, for instance. They all have friends and all these things. Like you put all of that into it, right? And when I think about like what we're doing as Spartan, obviously there's more to it. But like before that, I was like, I'm working out, as much as possible for the rest of my life. I decided on that very young age that I'm never going to stop working out because I want to live a long life. And what does that look like, right? Like, as long as I'm moving my body every single day. I love Aaron Alexander. He has the Align
Yeah.
podcast. Have you ever listened to his stuff?
Yeah, of course.
I like his like theory of like everything is working out. You're always like, and when I read his book, he's like, even as simple as reaching for something in your kitchen is doing something for your body. He's like, so purposely put things far away where you have to extend.
Mm.
Purposely, he's all about floor culture, which is something that Karina and I really, took to. We were like, ooh, we can save money and it's good for us, so we don't have a couch. And we talked
Yeah.
about this, and it's just like,
Yeah.
that constant like sitting on the floor and getting up from the floor, you're creating stronger hips.
Yeah,
um
one thing that, because we stole that from you 100% once we saw it, we totally emptied out our space. And like
right.
one of the things that I do now is like when I'm eating, I'll sit on the floor and I'll spread my legs out as far as possible. So like
Mm,
I'm like getting a groin stretch while like trying to keep an upright back at the same time as like eating my food. So it's like, it's true. It's like everything you do can turn into some form of like my lunch and my dinner now is turned into like a mobility practice. You know what I mean? And like, what's it called? That's something my boss actually got me on, Pamela, who has also been on the Hidden Health podcast. You can
Season
listen
one,
to her
yo.
episode, season 1, Pamela Gold. That's something she got me into because she talked to me about how she tries to also like incorporate as much movement as possible into her day, where it's like, sometimes if she's cooking some food, she's like, okay, well, I have 2 minutes until this thing is ready to go. How many push-ups can I get in that time? And she'll just drop and do push-ups. She still gets her daily workouts in, but outside of that, it's like, how much can I move? So like one of the things that I started doing is I got a pull-up bar.
Oh, same.
And yeah, I got a pull-up bar and I put it, whatever, I just have it out all the time. And so one of the things is like, it's by the bathroom. So every time that I pass by the bathroom or I pass by that corridor where the pull-up bar is, as long as I'm next to it, I have to go do 2 pull-ups. So I do it like 3 or 4 times a day. I just walk by, do a few pull-ups outside of my, regular, and it works, man. Especially if like I'm doing work and I'm getting tired or I'm just getting like lazy or whatever. I just go over, do a few pull-ups, and I'm like, all right, let's. There's something about getting to that mood of like doing something physically straining, just like wakes you up and you go back after it.
Yeah, for sure. And funny enough, I have the same thing. I have a pull-up bar
Mm,
right here, which it's our into our room, which is where the bathroom is. So every
mm,
time I pass it, like whether it's a few pull-ups or simply sometimes I just hang
mm,
because obviously I got that from Aaron Alexander too. It's just like you wanna, especially if I'm sitting for a long period of time. I'm in a meeting at work. I'm sitting down. I'm like, after the meeting, I literally go and hang for like a minute or 2 minutes. And I'll do that 3 or 4 times throughout the day. Just hang, just like
mm,
completely straight, it's straight into my back to normal. So I'm not like this from sitting because, yeah, as conscious as I try to be, sometimes you just don't catch it, bro. And I think it's vital to create that throughout your home. And I really got that idea from Aaron Alexander. And I'm like, and I don't have issues with my hips. I'm pretty strong in my hips, especially with all these kettlebell swings that we have to do in our workouts. But I think it's literally because since for a year now, we've had this floor culture idea. And throughout, if we're sitting watching a movie, we did that last night. We had like date night with a movie, we watched Project Power. And I was literally sitting there, bro, doing like hip hinges. I was like, I had
mm-hmm,
one knee, I was like going up and I will go down and I will go up on the other side. And I was just doing
mm.
that for like 15 minutes
That's
because
awesome.
or like I would lay down and then do long stretches, like make myself as thin as possible and just like
Hmm.
just stretching throughout the day. And this morning I woke, even though yesterday's workout was hard, I didn't wake up as sore as I
Yeah,
thought I was. So there's some great aspects to that so that the next day you can't make a complaint like, oh, I'm too sore to work out. And it's like, nope. I did enough
yeah,
stretching to take care of that.
yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, definitely. The creating as much like floor space in your home for movement is
Mm,
probably one of the best decisions I ever made. So anyone who's listening to this, like if you can do that, and a lot of times all that takes is getting rid of shit. Just get rid of your shit. You probably don't need majority of what's in your house. Make some extra money if you can sell it. Just get rid of it and create space because it changes everything, man. Like so much that you like think about like especially for someone like me who's like OCD about like having shit in not in its place. You just get rid of most of it, and so it's like there's less stuff to worry about, and you have the house always pretty much looks clean, even if you haven't cleaned it in a while because there's nothing there. It's kind of boneless. So it's awesome. Yeah, but I know we kind of veered off what our discussion was going to be about today, and we promised last week that we were going to talk about this. So let's dig in. Let's dig into nutrition, what we're doing for our in our separate training logs and stuff like that. So if you want to kick it off, I know you're really excited about this topic.
oh yeah, man. Funny enough, I just like came back from my run and I had my protein shake on it, protein shake, and I had a little beef jerky that chomps. Not advertised obviously, but they're great beef sticks, very clean ingredients. Um, but I'm mostly doing like a carnivore-ish, so meat-based, not plant-based, but that I still definitely get my carbs in, but that's usually through potatoes or rice. I'm Puerto Rican. I can't get rid of the rice. I had some last night, but usually when I work out after, I focus on the carbs. But throughout the day, I was actually telling Karina, I think I got to eat more because like I still been eating 2 meals a day, but these workouts are getting more intense, and now we're gonna start running more. So I'm like, I need to start upping up my caloric intake as much as I don't like calories. I'm like counting calories. I think that, and we talked about this, that there's something to it, especially when you're training for something like a Spartan. Like this is something that you have to implement so that you're getting the proper nutrition to make your body as strong as possible to be able to handle all these things that we're throwing at it. and for recovery, because food is a big proponent when it comes to recovery. So yes, meat based, but I started adding more organ meats. I think it's important to add some livers and stuff. So I went on,
Did you see Paul Saladino's new company?
yeah, Heart and Soil supplements or something
Are you
like
gonna
that.
try those out?
I thought about it, but like
I,
I don't have an issue eating like, like I feel like that's for people who have an issue with eating organ meat because they're so like they have a powerful taste and it's really hard to make them taste good. I don't
where
care.
do you
I'm
get it
like,
from? Where are you getting your
so
organ meat from?
so I don't know if you know, but in California, there's so many farms out here.
Sure.
So what I did is I just Googled a few farms. Obviously, there's famous farms like Belcampo. If you don't know Belcampo, I think the CEO has been on several podcasts. They do regenerative farming. I follow people like Paul Saladino, Sean Baker, all these carnivore folks who talk about other companies like Force of Nature Meats. There's another one that I thought about, but it's not coming to me right now. Well, the other day I just went on their site and I just order as much organ meat as I can. So yes, it's not cheap. It was over $100, but I got at least 12 pounds of meat. So I got like some heart, I got some liver, I got like two steaks, I got like fatty ground beef. So like, most of the time you find ground beef in the store, it's usually like 80, 20, the best you can get in terms of fat to lean. But this one is like 50-50, so like 50% fat,
That's
50%
awesome.
protein, lean beef. So so I get to utilize these farms that are so close to us. And I went to this website called farmfoods.com, I think, and the farm is literally like 15 miles away from us.
Farm
But
Foods
I dot
Farm
com.
Foods was a directory for farms, or just in California or all over?
I think it's all over. I don't know. I forgot where I got it from, but I started Googling it and I
Farm
found like
Foods.
one of those. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you could just join one of those. I guess they have people join it and you can, and they even have things like you can buy half a cow, a quarter of a cow, a whole
Yeah.
cow. It's expensive though. You buy a whole cow, it's like two G's, $2 thousand
But it'll
dollars.
last you. It'll last you for a
Right.
long time.
But I'm like, I don't have a deep freezer, so there's no way I can fit all that meat.
Yeah, absolutely. Save it for
um,
hunting.
exactly. But yeah, so I've been, and we have a butcher box subscription, so we get our meat from there. But since I'm carnivore-ish, like a lot of my plate is mostly meat, um, except like those times that I work out. Then after I'll implement more carbs than meat. But I'm
So
switching between the two.
so can you like take us through like a day of food?
Yeah. So most of the time in the morning, I do intermittent fasting still. Like I guess my body's just used to it. I never wake up hungry. I don't usually get hungry till about 11 or 12. Um, and I work out in the morning now. I don't work out in the afternoon just for time, like to save time. Um, so I'll usually work out around 8:30 and I won't eat till about 11:30 or 12. 90% of the time, my breakfast is always the same. It's about 3 or 4 eggs, all pasture raised. Got to make sure those yolks are super orange, not yellow, not a pale yellow, super orange. So I have like 3 or 4 eggs or like 2 strips of bacon or the sausage we get from Butcher Box. Um, and at most, I'll have some kraut with it. That's something I started implementing more in the carnivore-ish diet because he talks about fermenting foods being like a part of your a meal. So I've been implementing some kraut that we get from Sprouts. It's like organic, all that. So that's usually my breakfast. I don't usually get anything crazy. If I don't have
Four
time,
eggs.
yeah, I eat
It's
like
a good
three or
amount
four
of
eggs.
eggs, bro.
Yeah, I know. Because too, I feel like I'm still hungry after. So I started putting three, and now I'm still hungry. I was like, all right, four it is. So four eggs.
Why not? I'm just curious why you decided to just stock up on eggs in the morning versus like having eggs and meat or something like that.
Well, I gotta like make sure I like partition my meat because once again it gets pricey, especially when you're in
I see.
grass fed and stuff. So I try to save it for like one meal. So eggs are man's best friend because they're cheap. They're well
Mm.
cheaper than meat. You know, pasture eggs are still pretty pricey. But you know, like I go through that in a week. But most of the time, sometimes I don't even do that. Like sometimes if I don't, most of the time actually, I don't have time because I'm working. So what I'll do is I'll just make bulletproof coffee, and that's my breakfast because bulletproof coffee, you know,
Yeah, I know.
calorically, it's dense. It's a dense food. So you know,
Yeah.
put a nice slab of butter in there. I haven't been using the MCT oil as of late, just the butter. And then that'll hold me off till, you know, a late lunch slash early dinner. And usually it'll be, you know, ground beef burgers. The other day I made like my own offal. So I cut up some liver. I mixed it in with the ground beef and I made like ground beef burgers with a side of, you know, fermented food. So some kraut, and a little bit of potatoes, like literally like less than a handful. And that'll be like dinner. Yesterday, for instance, because I did a hardcore workout, we had like a poke bowl. So I like, you know, like we made it. Like it wasn't ordered or anything. So we made our own rice, which is all organic jasmine rice. We did wild caught salmon. We had we fermented some cucumbers ourselves. So we put that in there. Some ginger, fermented ginger, like all these things that we're trying. So I'm trying to implement more fermented foods. But usually, like dinner is either that, and on days that I don't like rest days, I'll have just like a whole steak, like 16-ounce steak
Mm.
alone, like, and that will
Mm.
keep me good for a while. And then you know, I might crack an egg on it after it's just finished coming off the thing, and I'll cook it. But it'll, you know, you can still break it into. Oh, it's so good! Like that's one of the best meals of all time. Like crack an egg on it, a raw egg, and you just break the yolk on the steak and you eat it together, bro, that
Are you
shit is
eating,
amazing.
what kind of steak do you like to eat?
I get the butcher box ribeyes. That's it, man. Ribeyes all day.
Do you only sear it or do you put it in the oven?
I do a minute on each side, high heat, obviously, like heat up the pan, and we use a skillet. Um, Sear it on each side for a minute, and then pop it into the oven because I don't like
Yeah.
when it gets blackened. And obviously, I
Oh,
like it
really?
medium rare. Yeah.
I like it. I like it a little crusty. I
You
like it
like
a
it a little
little crusty.
crusty? I don't know, man. The burnt. I'm still afraid that it has carcinogens and all that.
I mean, it does, but at the
Exactly.
same time, it's like,
It's delicious, I know. But
um,
you know,
I
that's the
hear you
majority
though.
of my meals. It's usually either ground beef. I recently took away pork. I used to have pork
Yeah,
like
me too.
often, but I don't know, man. It started making me feel like crap. Like I would get stomach aches and all this. Like I don't know what happened. I used to eat pork when I was a kid and I guess I thought I was fine, but once you start realizing you're more self-aware, you're like, actually, I'm not fine.
I
Um,
think um I think pork is just really fatty. I think
you
that's
think,
really all it is. I think pork is, especially if you're eating like grass fed, grass finished, uh, pasture raised pork, like, because at my butcher shop, the pork there is amazing. The pork chops, oh, I die from them. Like they're so good.
hmm
But I also had to cut them out because I just noticed like there's such a fatty meat, that if you're just not used to that, your stomach just gets kind of worked up a little bit. So I
that's
totally hear you.
that was my
Or
issue.
at least or at least I think if you really enjoy the pork, your second best option is just to eat less of it. Like
Yeah,
supplement it with other meats.
right.
But pork isn't cheap either, so
Exactly. I mean, with our butcher box, we get like a pork round like butt. So like in Puerto Rican culture,
Mm,
it's called pernil, and I love it. Like obviously, I grew up with that food. So once a month we get that, and I'll have some. And what's good is that it lasts us a while because it's like a big round thing, and there's only two of us, so it's not like a family's eating it. So it lasts us like
sure.
3 days that we can reheat it. Especially now that I eat less of it because I know how it makes me feel. But the food
Hmm.
that makes me feel the best is anything from beef. So that's why I started like doubling down on beef. And I think about like chicken is like a supplemental food in case like we're running low on meat, but our butcher box is coming like in 2 days. Then we'll make a chicken. Like that's when we go into the chicken reserves, but we get like fatty meat chicken, like chicken thighs, and chicken drumsticks. We have chicken wings, but when I eat chicken wings, I need to eat like 30 of them, especially after a workout, because like they're so small, you know, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot on them. But you know, I usually just like double down on that, and occasionally I'll have a salad. I started fasting once a week for 36 hours. Every
Oh, that's
Monday,
nice.
I started
Have
fasting.
you? That's something I was gonna do. Um, that's something I was gonna do. Well, we can get into that. I have some questions about that, but go ahead.
Hmm.
Finish your daily. So you have your last meal would be like a steak.
Pretty much,
And
just a
what time is
steak.
that? What time do you have your
I
last meal?
don't eat after 7, like ever.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it varies. Like sometimes
Yeah.
we'll eat at 6, 6:30. Sometimes we'll even eat as early as 5. But I notice that I'm hungry, so like I'll throw in some berries. So berries are like usually my snack. I have a small little like bowl, like it's tiny little bowl. It's like one of those sushi rice bowls,
Mm-hmm.
and I fill that with like blueberries and strawberries, which are like my top berries that I eat. And I'll just munch on those if I still feel a little hungry after dinner, but never eating past 7 because I notice it messes with my sleep.
Mm.
Um, so I just avoid it
Sure.
after 7, which is hard because you know everyone when you go out to eat, and I want to hear from you about that, like having those times where people want to go out to eat. I know we're in quarantine right now, but you know, some restaurants are still open and people want to go out and eat. Your friends want to go out and eat. You want to have that experience with them, but you're just like, I have goals that I need to hit and I want to go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep early and all these things. So like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we can kind of change it off to you because I'm not like, my meals are very simple.
And are you, I guess the last question would be is like, are you taking any supplementation? Do you have any supplements?
Just on the whey protein, if that counts. But I stayed away from supplementation. I got into it for like a few months and I realized it didn't really do, I don't see a difference. So I'm like, if
Mm.
anything, it probably messed me up more because that's when I noticed that I got injured while I don't know, maybe it's just my mind I got injured when I was taking all these supplements. I started feeling like odd sometimes. So occasionally, like I'll take a magnesium supplement at night, but it's not every single day. It's usually when I know I had a hardcore workout and I'm feeling sore and I'm like, I need some muscle relaxant, so I'll take like a magnesium citrate pill. That's about it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, I'll get into what I have going on because I have some labs in the works
Oh,
that,
nice.
but I think, and one of the biggest things that I learned from going through that process is like most supplements we take, we don't know. The only reason we take them is because we either are excited about the person who makes them, we're excited about the company who makes them,
Right.
or the copy on the sales page was really good.
It's really good. Yep.
But most of the time, like we're taking things because of what we think it's going to make us feel versus what they actually do.
Hmm.
Now, I still believe that supplementation is important because we just live in a world that's not optimized for our health. But if you're gonna take supplements, you should go and do it the right way, which is go and get tested, go know what you're actually missing, what you actually are deficient in, or if you have any allergens, go figure what those things are out first, and then build your supplement stack, versus just like doing random shit, which I have done for many years. I am a sucker for fitness products. even though I work, even though I work in marketing and I work specifically in the health and fitness industry, I am a total sucker for health and wellness products. So that you're hearing it from the horse's mouth for sure. But yeah, and so I guess the last question I'd ask you is, so how long have you been eating this way now?
About a month.
And what have you noticed have been some of the biggest impacts on your training, on your health?
Well, I definitely feel stronger.
I
I
mean, you
don't
look
get the
great. You look great,
thanks,
man. I
brother.
see some of
Thanks, brother.
your photos. You're looking solid.
I know I've been working hard, right? Like we've been working hard. So,
Yeah.
um, I think the biggest thing that I noticed a difference in, and this is funny because like, so for folks that don't know, I work in my day job is a nonprofit, and our offices actually are given to us by Facebook. So I actually work in the Facebook offices, but I don't work for Facebook. So I hope that makes sense. Um, and we just get them like interns and whatnot, and those interns usually get converted to jobs at Facebook. So that's why we work there. So obviously we got a lot of the perks that Facebook employees get because we were in their offices. So one of those was getting the free food. So back when we were still in person, we were getting this free food, and obviously I would take full advantage of that because the food was actually really good. And I noticed that when I was in person working, there was this time between like 1 and 3. It was never the same time, but it was between that time. I would get this big dip, just like loss of energy. I'm tired. I need a nap, like all these things. And now that I look back in hindsight, I realized that it was probably from that food. Because think about it, that food is not organic. Most of the time, it was very high in carbs. And you know, carbs in the afternoon are the worst thing to do for yourself. At least for me, like carbs in the afternoon always make me drowsy and I need a nap. But what I noticed is that since I started eating this way, whether that's, you know, fasting through, having just a bulletproof coffee or my eggs, bacon, or sausage, I don't get that crash feeling between 1 and 3. I don't feel tired. And I've experimented. I've brought carbs back, and like when we've been in this quarantine, I'm like, let me see if I can have some home potatoes, sweet potatoes that Karina might make. We might make some paleo pancakes. We don't use regular flour. We use birch benders. So they make cassava flour pancakes. That also makes me feel tired. So I'm noticing like, if I have this for lunch, between 1 and 3, I'm just going to get this huge dip in energy and motivation. But when I have like a bulletproof coffee, when I'm having like high protein, high fat for my late breakfast or afternoon lunch, I notice that I don't get that dip, and I have a full, like, nice energy throughout the day. It's just a nice, you know, I never have a dip. It's just perfect. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this is optimal because like I've experimented, I've tried to see if what works. Maybe if I have a little bit of carbs, maybe if I have a little bit of this, but I noticed that it doesn't work. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna remove carbs for lunch and just stay high protein, high fat, and save my carbs for dinner. Because actually, there's studies out there. Dave Asprey had it in his book that having carbs for your last meal actually helps with sleep, helps with you getting more deep sleep. So that's where the potatoes come in. Sometimes we'll have breakfast for dinner, so we'll have pancakes for dinner, cassava flour, birch benders, of course, and that's for what I felt like. So optimally, my energy levels have been nice and like a nice little. It just stays on top, and I'm following that circadian rhythm, so it feels really great. So that's why I was like, I think this is a great way of eating. Obviously, my body, I think, is still adjusting to it. So you know, when I go to the bathroom, for instance, I notice that it is still adjusting. So I'm giving that time because there's an adjustment period when you're carnivore or when you're starting to go into carnivore. So like, I think my body's readjusting to that again. But other than that, everything else is energy wise is great. I feel satiated. I never feel really hungry, which I was telling you earlier. Like, I think I got to eat more because I'm just not hungry. And I think it's because of that high fat, high protein.
And you feel you have to eat more. Why exactly?
Just calorically, I think I can, you know, I need to like get that energy back.
I mean,
Because
I would, my, the thing is you're not tracking calories
I'm not, yeah,
and I am,
right.
and I have in the past a few times, so I know it pretty well. And fat, you know, fat is almost double for every gram of fat. It's almost double a gram of protein and carbs. And considering that you're eating a lot of these fatty foods like eggs and ribeyes and stuff like that, I would recommend first, you know, getting like figuring out what your caloric maintenance is, and that's just, you know, get a TDE calculator and figure out what your caloric maintenance. What would you look like at a deficit? What would you look at like at a
Surplus.
gain, at a surplus, and then track for at least like a couple days where you're at calorically, because you never really know how much you're eating. You may already be in a surplus, right? Or you may be exactly where you need to be, and adding could give you results you don't want, or whatever it is. So because that was one of the biggest things, we can shift to my diet. Like, I was eating pretty carnivore-ish before I started getting a little more serious about my calories and going on a cut, because I've shared this with you, like from like an aesthetics perspective, or from a physique perspective, I'm at a point now where I was able to drop 40-50 pounds just eating healthy and eating the right foods and staying on top of all the other like stress factors. But to get to the place where I want to be, which is being shredded, and as I say that, I just want to make a note that, like, anyone who has aesthetic goals, it's perfectly fine to have aesthetic goals, and you should feel encouraged and excited about having aesthetic goals, and there's nothing intrinsically wrong with it, as long as you know for yourself that you're doing it without thinking that anyone's going to love you more or that anyone's going to treat you better or any of these things. If you're going into it because it's for you and it's what you want to be, and you want your body to represent a certain aspect of yourself, then you got my blessing. Because I think there's a lot of shy talk around aesthetics, and even myself, I've been very shy to talk about what aesthetic goals I have, and I try to keep it more about my training or about my health, and like all those things are super important. But I just myself would want to be more honest about certain things I do is because purely for aesthetic goals. And so, sorry for that little rant. Anyway, so at the stage I'm in now, like, there's no, I don't think I can get any leaner really without counting my calories. As well as, one of the other things I'm doing is I'm working with this man named Boomer Anderson. He actually has his own podcast called Decoding Superhuman, and he had me take a full panel. So I did 2 blood tests. I did 3 stool tests, 3 days of stool tests, and a urine test. And it's basically going to be tracking any things that I'm deficient in, like vitamins and minerals, any what allergies I might have, so any foods that I may have sensitivities to, and then any toxicity that I might have in my body, because we know all those things can be related to inflammation. And so we'll do a deep dive once I get those results in about 2 weeks or so about what that looks like and what changes I'll make. But otherwise, the second biggest thing that I can do to be more direct about the results I want is being in a caloric deficit. And so so what I've been doing is I'm consuming at about so when I started, once I did my numbers, I was like 182 and a little over 182 and a half or so pounds. I'm 5'9", and so my caloric intake went down to, my maintenance was 2,800 calories, and I cut it by 500 calories, so just about 2,300. And then my macro split, I broke it up between, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but it's essentially like a 40-40-20 for protein, fat, and carbs. Although I think I switched it up where I think I made the fats a little bit higher, proteins a little bit lower, and then carbs a little bit higher just for financial reasons. Like you can, because if I like with keeping things high fat and high protein, can get pretty expensive. And so
Oh
I
yeah,
played
that's
around
why
with
I
the
started
numbers.
fasting once a week.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into that too. So I typically have I have 2 meals a day. And what that consists of is in the morning, I will have a bulletproof coffee. So I'll have some butter, some XCT oil from Bulletproof, which is just another chain of MCT. It's of the same profile, but just a different chain, and or of the same chain and just a different profile. I think that's the right way you say it. Anyway, so I'll have that, and then I'll wait about 30 minutes or so, or sometimes I'll do it after, and I'll have what do I have first? I have some steak. So I have what's called a London broil, and London broil is pretty cheap, but it's a great piece of steak, especially if you can get it grass-fed and organic. So I have about 4.5 ounces of that with about a cup of rice and 2 eggs, pasture-raised eggs. And always, I know you're an egg militant man,
Oh
so
yeah.
I gotta make sure you know I'm eating my pasture-raised eggs. And I typically have that after my workout, unless I finished eating really early the night before, or I have a long run. And long runs are relative, but like for example, today I had a 4 mile run. I haven't done 4 miles yet, so I think my last meal last night, I ended at like 5:20, and I went running at about like 7 or 8 in the morning. And so I was like, well, I'd like some fuel for this one. So I just had a little bit of bulletproof coffee, and then I just went on my run. But then afterwards, I'll have the steak and the rice with 2 eggs. And then my snacks consist of macadamia nuts because I love them. They're delicious and they're nice and fatty. And a bowl of Buddha popcorn because it's voluminous and it is great and tasty. Himalayan pink salt, a little bit of coconut oil. You can't go wrong. And then for dinner, so yeah, I basically will have all of that directly after my workout, and then I just won't eat for 4 or 5 hours, and then I'll have dinner at a. I try to actually, for me, I try to stop eating by 6 o'clock. It doesn't always happen because of life, and so, but I try to. It's a good day if I stop eating before 6 o'clock. And that will just be some steak, some lean chicken breast, and some rice. And I've been doing that for 3 weeks, and it's been great. It seems like I'm not tracking too aggressively because it's just a part of my life now, but I typically fast 15 to 16 hours every day, as long as I finish eating early. And it's been going well. I've been on this. So I started training about a month ago, about almost 2 months ago, actually. But I started the diet about three weeks ago. And in the past, when I used to have a lot of like mental sort of, I don't want to say mental issues, but like, I guess when I'd say I was very mental about the diet, like, or even I would say even emotional about dieting, and I would get kind of obsessive compulsive around it. I'm in a much better place now because I was telling you this, like I was sort of afraid to count calories again because of my history, especially when I was pursuing bodybuilding and just those times of just being so obsessed with calories all the time and wanting everything to be 100% perfect on the dot, and if it wasn't, then I was just crazy. And so I really didn't want to go back to that. But I also felt that like with all the work, I've done over the past few years, that I'm in a much better place and I can handle something like this a lot better. So I don't recommend counting calories for everyone, depending on where they are in their journey, because it can drive you a little insane.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, I was in a much better place. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I also have a protein shake after my workout. Right now, I'm drinking Bulletproof's expensive ass collagen chocolate protein, but I just ordered some Jacko Mulk protein, Mulk mint chocolate chip, because that's my flavor. Fuck everybody who doesn't like mint chocolate chip, including you and my
Yep.
girlfriend.
Oh, she doesn't like it either?
No, she hates it. She's like, I don't
Yeah.
understand why. Does
Yeah.
Karina like mint chocolate chip?
I don't know. I can ask her, babe, do you like mint chocolate chip? Yeah, she made a face and I was like, no.
Oh my god, bro. Mint chocolate chip is great.
The whole squad is like, nope.
Jocko Willink likes mint chocolate chip, obviously. So I don't know. I don't know who's a better person to,
Hey man, to each
question.
his own, right? Just keep me with my on it Mexican chocolate, which is absolutely delicious. And that's it.
Yeah, whatever, man. Anyway, so like I said, I was in a much better place now, and it's crazy how important it is to sort of be detached and accepting of the process. Because I remember in the past, one of the biggest things that would frustrate me when I would count calories is like I would weigh myself every day. And
that's so bad, dude.
I know. I would weigh myself every day. And so honestly, I think for some people it works. Like for some people, they're able to detach enough where it just keeps them accountable. Like it
Very
just keeps
few
them
people,
accountable. Yeah, like I know Gary Vee has mentioned that before, that he weighs himself every day because it's just like a reminder to get after it. But for me, it just drove me insane, because you feel like you're putting so much effort, and the numbers are able to shift, often, and so you never really know what you're
water
looking at.
weight. Yeah, exactly. Water weight, inflammation, all these things are factors.
Yeah, and so what I decided to do, and also I'll say in the past I would also cut pretty hard. So I would cut my calories pretty low, eat very, very lean foods. Like I would just eat like rice and chicken, for example, and like protein shakes, and just try to keep it as lean as possible. And that would just be a struggle all the time. And sometimes I'd lose like maybe 5 pounds in a week. But then, by the end of the second week, I'm dying and I just want to eat and binge and do all those things. And so this time I was like, I'm going to be really strategic about this. There's no shortcuts. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. There's no shortcuts to real results. And so I cut my calories by 500 calories, which was crazy to me because I remember looking at the number and like when I logged like the food I was going to eat, I was like, wow, this is like a good amount of food. Like, cause I'm so used to cutting my calories so low that it blew my mind when I saw like, oh, I get to eat, all this food. That's crazy. But in some ways that's how it's supposed to be. It's not necessarily supposed to be something that's so hard. You want it to just be hard enough that you can maintain. And so I decided not to weigh myself every day. I weigh myself about once a week, or so. And I remember I waited a week. I weighed myself, and like really not much changed. I might have lost like half a pound or so. And the thing about calorie counting is a lot of people confuse it for like your daily calories, but it's really over time. Like calorie counting works because of how you cut your calories over time. So it's more about like week to week, how many calories are you under versus day to day. And so I was like, whatever, I was detached from it. And so it's been 3 weeks now, and I went from like 182.6 to 179. So I've honestly lost like a little over a pound every week. And if I was weighing myself every day, I would have drove myself insane, because at the end of week 1, I was down 0.5 pounds. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a journey. So if I kept weighing myself, so I was like, fuck it, I'm not even going to weigh myself on week 2. So I didn't weigh myself last week. I weighed myself today. I was like 179. I was like, that's exactly where I'm supposed to be. So it's interesting kind of how fluctuations happen, but you kind of end up in the same place you're supposed to be in. Anyway, and so that's where I'm at. And then the what's it called? So I'm coming up on week 4 of this diet, and like I said, things are subject to change when I get my test results back. But that I wanted to talk to you about what you're doing every Monday, because that's something I really want to start incorporating after week 4. So going into week 5, I definitely want to do, I was going to say a 24-hour fast, but I'm competitive. So if you're doing a 36-hour fast, it just makes me want to, and that's why, that's like, and I want to do a whole podcast on this, but this idea of like communal, like communal fitness, it's something that the company that I'm working with, Portal, like it's something that we're going to be huge on. But this idea of like communal fitness, like having people who are going hard in the areas you want to go hard in, it shifts what's possible in your brain automatically, because I'm going like, okay, well, I'll incorporate 24 hours. And in my head, I'm like, man, that's going to be tough. Like, I wonder if I'm going to be able to do it, or it should be easy, blah, blah, blah. And then you go, yeah, I just do like 36-hour fasts every Monday. And I'm like, well, fuck, like that just makes me realize like, well, if Ruben can do it, like I know Ruben's a person. I know what his faults are. I know what makes him good and what makes him a real person. So if he could do 36, I could do 36, and it's so important to have real people in your life that can push you in that way. But I am curious to know how long have you been doing this weekly 36-hour fast?
Consistently 2 weeks, but inconsistently, like since like we did the 5-day fast like over a year ago, and we have a podcast on that during the first season on that experience, which is unnecessary. 5 days, especially where we're at in terms of weight, it's completely unnecessary. A day, and I've been listening to Peter Attia, who really talks about this a lot. I use the Zero Fasting app, which Peter Attia has a bunch of articles there about fasting. And he says if you can do either every quarter, so every 3 months, you can do a nice 3-day fast, or you can just do a 24 to 36 hour every week, once a week. So I don't know if you know this guy. He does a podcast called High Intensity Health, Mike Mutzel.
Yeah, of course.
He has this thing called Metabolic Mondays where he does a fast every Monday. So I was just like, and that's, for me, that's rest day, because I'm kind of off the schedule that you're on in terms of the running schedule. So I was like, cool. So Monday will be my Metabolic Monday, started Sunday afternoon, and then, just like eat my first meal either Monday night or Tuesday morning. So I'm trying to go for Tuesday morning. The last 2 weeks have been that, but before that, it's mostly like Monday night. But it's easy, I think, one, because we've fasted in the past for so long that like not eating is so easy. Like it's so easy not to eat versus like, being an addict to the food and an addict to what the body is asking for. And it's just like, no, you're okay. You can handle some water and salt for a day. You know what I mean? So I think I just do it as like a cleansing process, you can say. Like it makes me feel like I'm clean, especially when I start eating again. I just feel better. I like to break my fast with bone broth. So that's something I've been doing. It makes me feel much better getting that collagen in. It's good for the digestion. And that's kind of something I'm always focused on, is like what can help my digestion better, because it's definitely something I struggle with, even till this day. I mean, the best digestion experience I ever had was on carnivore. surprisingly. Like most people are like, oh, you need to eat more vegetables, drink green juices and all that. Those are fine, but it has not made me consistent. But when I was carnivore, it was consistently the same time, same thing every single day. So I'm like, if I do carnivore-ish, I'll probably experience the same. But I definitely have to do that transitional period. But I like the idea of fasting because of that cleansing effect. So that's why fasting is super important to me. I know.
Have you noticed any differences within your like results in the past 2 weeks?
I mean, just aesthetically, mostly.
Hmm.
You got your aesthetics. I just feel more leaner, more fit. Um, Obviously, I was learning from another person I follow, Thomas Delure, who talks a lot about fasting. And when you work out during a fast, the fact that your growth hormone, I think it's called HGF or HGH, I forget the code, but like your factor growth hormone inside is like
Human growth hormone.
it's like at its peak when you're fasting at a certain time. So it's like work out while you fast. Like, well, not like workout, and that's kind of like something I want to start implementing. So maybe I might shift from Monday to a strength and conditioning day. Because he says like when you lift heavy, you're more likely to like, you'll lift right before you break the fast. So it's like lift, then you break your fast, and your body's just gobbling up those nutrients, which in turn like makes you more aesthetically and pleasing. You look better and you feel better energetically. You're getting those gains. So I'm like, what's the most way we can get
So
gains?
you've seen an aesthetic improvement in just 2 weeks of
That's
doing
2 weeks,
one
bro.
36-hour fast per week. Wow, man.
Right.
And what exactly have you seen? Like, do you feel leaner, more muscular?
Just more muscular. I feel like the skin, right? Like it's all about the skin. So everything is more tight. Like, my shoulders look
Mm.
better. Like my arms look better. My trunk looks, better. I used to like look and just you get that little bulb, especially after you eat, your tummy. This is, just a quick
Yeah, yeah.
rant. Is like, when you see these fitness stars on Instagram, like usually they're posing. So they can definitely like, or they're like tightening up their body, which of course is going to showcase, or they're doing it right after workout where your blood is pumping. So your body looks better. But to be honest, throughout the day, they don't look like that. My body changes throughout the day and throughout the week, like all the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
So when people are looking at these Instagram
Absolutely.
people, you're seeing just a small percentage of how they look. And most of the time they're doing that when they work out. So they look their best. But like after dinner, they don't look like that, bro. They have a little gut because they just ate, right? And that lasts for a few hours,
Yeah.
right? There's
Also
inflammation there,
lighting.
depending on lighting, huge one, right? Like all these things. And like I saw a
Lighting
post
changes
yesterday,
everything, bro.
it could change everything. Like, oh, if I'm standing in the sun after I just worked out and I'm sweating and glistening, I look my best. But like after waking up in the morning, like, maybe I might have had some carbs last night. I wake up, I turn on the light in my mirror in the bathroom. I don't look as cut. And that's just the reality. Like your body is constantly
Yeah.
changing. And most of the time when you see like UFC fighters, they do like water fasts right before they do the weigh-ins. They do crazy cutting. They do like all these different techniques to make their body look and their weight be at an optimal state. But that's just it's not the case. Something I've noticed recently is like I've really followed the carnivore community because I'm like it's so new, and I'm like I don't think this is a lifetime thing. This is definitely a short-term thing. That's why I was like carnivore-ish is probably much better. But like these people that go full carnivore, like completely, and they're eating just like, I started following this lady just out of curiosity because she literally only eats McDonald's hamburgers.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Right. And I'm like, but she's been carnivore for 10 years. And I'm like, okay, so there is a story out there of someone that's been doing this for a long period of time. But to me, I'm just like, how can you do it? The minute you come off of that, all that weight that you lost, all these amazing stories that you see, people are going to gain all that back. And then they're going to go back and there's this yo-yo dieting that's part of it. And mentally, I think that's just wrong. So I'm like, I don't want to go that route. So that's why I would never like do full carnivore where I'm just eating, like just ribeyes all the time and eggs and just, steak. I would definitely like always implement some kind of carbs, berries, and things like of that nature. But fasting will always be a protocol because of how amazing it makes me feel
Yeah.
and how good I feel I look for that confidence, right? And just the brain, like your brain just like goes into overdrive, especially during the first 24 hours. You just have this amazing like clarity, and I love that feeling. So definitely something I implement strategically.
Yeah, for sure. I think fasting is really important. I was just gonna say, like, I think one of the biggest solutions, it's something that Elliot also talks about a lot, is like one of the biggest solutions to yo-yo dieting is fasting. You know, like that's
Mm,
one of the best solutions. And I think it's also a great solution to holidays. It's a great solution to eating out or going on date night. Like if you know you have something coming up, like it was my mom's birthday a few weeks ago, and I had her and my dad come over, and I was making bolognese. We had, I think, cauliflower pasta, but it was still like it was going to be oily and meaty and buttery, and we were going to have, obviously, Valentina made like this keto brownie cake that was delicious, and I just knew all of these things were coming, right? And so um, I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just do a 24-hour fast so that when it's time to have this meal, I know that no matter, like, even though, now, funny enough, like, I think because of the 24-hour fast, I didn't gorge myself because my stomach, I think, was just kind of like shrunk at the moment. So as soon as I finished the pasta, and then I had a little bit of the cake, and I was like good to go. You know, it was I didn't have this feeling of like, I want to keep eating, but I had no guilt, you know, and I had no like food anxiety, which I think a lot of people go through when they're dieting. Is like they go through this sense of food anxiety when it comes time to go out, or they feel like they can't go out and enjoy themselves. And to some
mm,
level, that's true. You know, that's one of the biggest things, you know, you brought this up earlier. That's one of the biggest things I learned from this quarantine is like, if you have goals and you feel like, in the past, I would make excuses, oh, I don't have the time, or like, oh, it's just really hard. It's not hard as long as you don't put yourself into situations where there is temptation. You know,
mm-hmm.
instead of fighting temptation, just don't be where there is temptation. And I think the reality that's there to accept is that you have to say no. You know, that's something me and you've been talking about. It's like you just have to say, you just say, I cannot go because I have this goal. And while I have this goal, I cannot
I'm not doing this.
participate
Right.
in this environment, um, because there's temptation, and we're humans, and humans succumb to temptation. It's a lot easier to succumb to temptation than it is to not succumb to it. So why even put yourself there? You know, and I think that's a
Exactly.
big
It's so
lesson I
funny
learned.
that you say that, bro, because when I work with like clients and like people that want to like they're in a relationship and they like I'm tempted to be with different women or whatever the case may be. I'm always like, just don't put yourself in a situation that will tempt you for that, whether that's going out to a club and there's all these beautiful, gorgeous women. Well, we're not doing that right now in quarantine, but in the past I would talk to my clients and be like, don't put yourself in those situations. Like you have alcohol, you have beautiful women everywhere who are wearing God knows what, right? Barely anything. And then, like if you start talking to a chick, maybe you're you're an attractive dude. Like you're just making it so bad and so easy for you to fall into the temptation. I explain it. It's
Yeah.
the same way with food. It's the same way with alcohol. It's like if it's around, and people are doing it because we're such a communal species, like we're more likely to do that. And the hardest is like, and I gave you that example the other day. We went on a double date with another couple. Everyone got alcohol, and my brain wanted to, right? Like my brain was like, oh, maybe you can get like a quote unquote healthy alcohol, or like, tequila, I think is on the spectrum. It's on the Bulletproof website. Like you can actually see it. You can Google it if you're interested, if you're listening. there's an alcohol spectrum, and the one that will make you feel less crappy than the others. And I think the ones that are in the green that are go to or okay and minimal quantities is tequila, I think vodka. So I was like, oh, maybe I could just get a tequila on the rocks. Yeah, I was like, you know what? No, say water. And that's really funny when the waitress is getting everyone, and Karina's getting a margarita. Her friend is getting a margarita. The guy is getting a beer, and you're sitting there like, should I get should I get some? I was just like, you know what? Just water. Thank you. No ice because
And
cold water.
there's that pressure too. There's that pressure too of like having to explain yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because
my
you know
God,
what's
yes.
coming next. You know what's coming next. Water. Why'd you just water? What do you mean? What are you doing? Blah 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 blah. And you just like everything I say right now from this perspective is gonna sound condescending and it's gonna sound like I'm a jerk, but it's like this is just my life. And part of you just doesn't want to go through that, so
Right.
you just instinctively go, let me get a tequila on the rocks or something just not have to face that social pressure. And there you could say, well, just be tough enough to face that, or
Mm-hmm.
don't face anything because you're not in that
You're not
situation,
there.
and so it's like,
Right.
or save that energy for when you are in that situation. You have to be in that
Right.
situation, but most of the time you don't. um,
And have an easy answer.
and
Right? Like an easy answer.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
as soon as I said that and just water, the guy who got the beer looked at me and was just like, "You're not drinking?" And I was just like, "I'm not drinking because I'm currently training for a race." I didn't say it's a Spartan race. I didn't say it's a
uh,
half marathon. I didn't say any of that. I was just like, "I'm training for a race in February. I'm not having alcohol during this time." And it just ended the conversation. So it's like finding something that you can say that's
right.
quick, that doesn't require a long, drawn out explanation. Unless you want to do that, then great. But if
Mhm.
you don't, don't put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And but the other so well not but and the other solution you have is if you do want to go out and you do want to enjoy something, or if you want to have a date night or whatever it is, um, and you're cutting, well, in that situation, just have a 24-hour fast minimum. Just do a
Mm-hmm.
minimum of a 24-hour fast, because
And stay
if
home.
you're doing a minimum of it and stay home, yeah, do a minimum of a 24-hour fast. And then if you're gonna have a night out meal, and I don't recommend doing this if you're then gonna have Chinese food. Like if you're gonna do a 24-hour fast and then you're gonna eat some really crappy food, that's probably gonna fuck up your body. So don't do that. What you should do is if when I say, like, to me, the way my brain works at this point is if I'm going out to the healthiest possible restaurant, or if I'm eating outside of my diet, I'm eating the healthiest possible food I can eat outside of my diet, or I'm just eating something that's very healthy that I like, that's just not within my regular realms of how many ounces it is, and how much of it I'm eating and what I'm putting on top of it or whatever, right? And so, um, is my connection good?
Yeah, you're fine.
And so I, uh, in that case, I just recommend doing a 24-hour fast and then having your meal, because you're going to be like, I just did 24 hours of no eating. I'm good to go, and it saves that anxiety, because one of the worst feelings when you're dieting is when you do go enjoy yourself and then you start having these insane conversations in your head of like, oh, is this going to fuck up my progress? Oh,
Mm,
and in reality, you're probably just improved your progress by doing this 20. Like, I remember after that night with my parents, and the next morning I looked leaner, I felt better, everything was great.
right.
So fasting is one of those things that is such a miracle, because humans can go 30 days without food. So, and we've also found that there's so many immense health benefits to just
So
not
many.
eating anything at all. That if you can incorporate into your life in these short bursts, then you're automatically winning. And there's no, there's no calculating. There's nothing fancy you have to do. You don't have to buy anything. You can save money. You just don't eat. That's it. You just don't eat. You drink water, put some salt in that bitch, and you're good to go.
Right. But I do want to mention one thing. I don't know, Jesse, have you watched a new docuseries on Netflix called Unwell?
I know it just came out. You were telling me the other day. I was gonna probably watch a few episodes with Val tonight.
Okay. So start the fasting one because there is one on fasting. So folks that probably have watched that because it's like front and center on Netflix right now. So definitely people are watching it. So something that they talk about, and obviously I want to like put like a nice big like warning. So fasting is not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. One thing I want to say is usually like if I'm going to work with a client and they're super skinny, I do not recommend a fast for them. There's a story in that Unwell, and I won't go deep into it. If you're interested, watch it. But a man who was like a toothpick, dude. Like he was already fit. He was already doing this. He went on a fasting camp, which do exist here in the States, and he did 28 days. Why they put him on 28 days, I have no idea because he was already a toothpick. Yeah, right? Like face palm, bro. He was already a toothpick and he went crazy. Like something happened in his brain. He went out and he died. He pretty much fell. He passed out because that's what happens when you're not eating, right? You're not getting where and then a ton of questions came up for me like was he getting electrolytes? Were they giving him magnesium, potassium, and salt and sodium? Like all these things came, they never answered those questions. So obviously these questions came up, and I was just like, why would you put this person on a 28-day fast, this fasting camp? They never went to jail because they're obviously out of the US. And then they got him to stay in some hotel. He left the hotel, probably passed out, hit his head somewhere, died. Okay. So I definitely want to put it out there. And that's why I said, if you're going to fast, stay home. Don't drive. Don't go anywhere. If you're going to go anywhere, go with someone that you know, your partner, a family member, whatever, even if it is 24-hour fast, depending on who you are. And also there's a lot of research and study out there. If you're a young woman, and this is hit or miss, like I guess for some women, but they don't recommend fasting for women because of the fact that, the monthly period, losing blood, women need way more nutrition than we do as men, because we don't have that where we're bleeding out every month and losing a bunch of these nutritional sources. So I definitely want to bring it up. Obviously, if folks are interested in watching that, Jesse, I highly recommend watching it. So we have that also, because when I work with clients, unless they like are on the side of the bigger spectrum, then I will recommend incorporating fasting occasionally, but also tell them like if you're gonna fast, do not do anything that requires you having to drive, do a long walking distance, or anything like that, and make sure you have potassium, sodium, and magnesium so that you have enough electrolytes. So when you're going from the floor to standing up, you don't get that lightheaded, like whoa feeling. Just wanted to throw that out there because we are talking about fasting. We do it, and we've done 5 days in the past and all these crazy things. And I just want to make sure that people are prepared. And if folks are really getting into fasting, Jesse and I are coaches. We can definitely support. So I just wanted to throw that in there, just in case, because it can definitely be dangerous for some folks to do fasting and is not recommended for everyone. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. You're right. There should definitely be a warning label on this, on what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're very thin, if you suffer from anorexia, fasting, if you have body dysmorphia, fasting can be problematic for you. I know you said women shouldn't fast. Did they say that all women shouldn't fast? Did they say that they shouldn't fast at all? They shouldn't do, because from my understanding, one is like if you're an overweight woman, you can fast because you have excess nutrients in your body. And then two,
yeah, and they
I don't think a 24-hour fast for a healthy woman would do any damage. Maybe if it's during that time of the month, possibly.
right.
I don't know. That's above my knowledge, but I'm sure a healthy woman could do one 24-hour fast every now and then and
Every
be
now and
fine.
then.
Or did they say something?
No, they even
Did they
follow a
say something different?
woman who's on the heavier side, and she does a 28-day fast in this fasting camp. But what's good about that fasting camp is that they had doctors, right? So they had doctors taking blood tests, they had doctors checking in with people every day. So, taking their blood pressure and all these things. So that's pretty good. But definitely and I learned this from Karina when she read the book In the Flow by Alicia Vitti, I think her name is, who's a holistic health coach. And she
Alyssa Vitti.
also, yeah, Lisa Vitti. I said her name completely wrong. But she recommended in that book, she actually talks about fasting. She's like, I do not recommend it for women, just due to the fact that these things happen in the body, there's cycles. Maybe in one of the cycles they can do a 24-hour, but other than that, especially during the time of the month when they're, on their period, definitely not fasting, like reintroducing all those nutrients that you're losing through that blood, especially iron. So all these things that, and I didn't read the book, but I definitely learned from Karina because she got really into it. She has a whole spreadsheet and all this. And I'm like, when I work with women, I was like, I'm definitely taking that spreadsheet so that the women can track and where they're at and what they're doing. Haven't worked with a woman client yet, but I'm definitely ready just in case. But it's just something that they say because a woman's body is so different. Most studies that are out there for fasting are on men. So unfortunately, the data that's out there for fasting it's mostly men. So if you're a woman, it's really hard to tell if
Yeah.
this is gonna work for you unless obviously you try it. But I don't want a woman to be like, oh my God, I lost my period and all these other issues that may arise from it. So definitely do short term, intermittent is probably okay, but definitely work with a professional, a specialist for fasting if you're a woman. But yeah.
All right. Good job on making sure we don't get sued. Thank
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
Ruben.
Always gotta make sure, bro. You never know. But
All
yeah, let's
right.
let's
Well,
let's close this out because
let's wrap it up.
yeah. So what's coming up this week? I just wanna end there for you.
Cool. Yeah. So for me, I think it's still my mileage has went up. Um, so I'll be doing some more 4 milers this week. All is well. I think this will be week 4 on the diet. So starting next week, I'll be beginning doing a weekly prolonged fast, and we'll see how that goes. Because one of the things with diet is you want to progress slowly. So I was like, well, if I'm seeing really good results for the first month, just cutting calories, like I'm gonna ride that out for a month and then increment, slowly add these other ways I can manipulate my diet and do different things. So that's what I have to look forward to. Otherwise, all is good. My body feels good. I look forward to getting the metabolite tests in a few weeks, and we'll do an episode on that. But otherwise, all is the same so far for the training. How about you, brother?
Same, starting the 3 milers this week, tomorrow technically. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, everything's gonna stay the same. We're still quarantined, so not much to do. But I'm definitely want to take one of the 2 milers this week and go on a trail run and just jump into that. And I found one that has it's just flat, so there's no elevation, so kind of get used to running on dirt versus cement. So just trying to implement something different. So that's gonna happen this week. I'm gonna try something new, and obviously I'll let folks know what that looks like next week. And the cops train on this trail, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, nothing too big, nothing changing for nutrition. I'm still gonna fast on Monday, and yeah, just keep grinding it out. Nobody cares. Work harder, as Cameron Haynes says.
Keep hammering.
Keep hammering. So yeah, I think I just want to close it out with, you're posting more about what you're doing. So definitely follow Jesse I'm also posting more of like workouts and the food that I'm eating. So definitely follow us there on the Instagram. It's going to be in the show notes. So we don't have to say it here. Y'all can find us in the show notes by just clicking that link. Other than that, Jesse, any last words before we jump off?
My last words would be I hope you guys are out there crushing it. And if you ever want to chat with us about any of your fitness goals or just chat with us in general about anything that you have going on in your life, things that you're getting after, we'd love to hear from you. So we're serious when we say connect with us on the gram, hit us up. We will respond. We are super excited about what we're doing, and we got big dreams and big goals, and we want people along with us for the ride, achieving their own goals. So seriously, hit us up. And if you enjoy this podcast, please leave a review, share it with a friend. Those things make a huge difference. It really gets, our word, our voices out there, and supports what we're doing here, and provides opportunity for us to do even cooler things that we definitely want to do. So all the love and support is greatly appreciated. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Training for
y'all.
Spartan, baby.
Let's do it. All right, y'all.
Peace.
Peace out. Peace.